guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Via and I am genuinely passionate about makeup. In today's video, we are going back to the basics of makeup. We are talking like the ABC of makeup. Even though my videos are pretty beginner friendly, I try to explain as much as I can, I do realize that I've never done an actual makeup for beginners video. We are talking about like what products you actually need, how to choose products for your complexion, how to apply them for an even and flawless makeup look. So either if you are a beginner and you are now learning the first few things about makeup, or you're just an experienced makeup artist who wants to see how I do things and just give a quick refresh to your makeup technique, just keep on watching. But before we move on to the video, don't forget to like this video and to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I also want to give you guys a small disclaimer. Makeup does not have a one way of doing things. Makeup is art. This is my way of doing makeup. This is my personal preference. It comes from my experience as a makeup artist. So if you are interested, just keep on watching. Before we start talking about actual makeup products, there is one thing that I want to talk to you guys about, which is very, very important, which is skincare. Before you even consider applying makeup on your skin, you have to take good care of it. You have to build a good canvas so that you can then apply your makeup. So that will include you understanding what's your skin type. Do you have dry skin, normal, combination, oily skin? Are there any concerns that you might want to address? Either that might be maybe acne, maybe rosacea, all of those issues that you can take care of using skincare. Because when you do your skincare, you want to make sure that you neutralize any concerns that you might have, and you want to give your skin what it needs so that it doesn't react with the makeup. And one tip that I also want to talk to you guys about is that whenever you are going to do your makeup, you finish doing your skincare, let it set for a while because your skin needs to absorb the products. So if you want the makeup to be extra flawless, this is like one extra tiny tip that adds up to the rest of the things that I'm going to teach you about on this video that will lead to a flawless complexion. The first makeup product that I want to talk to you guys about is primer. I do realize that primer is optional. You can actually stick to your skincare routine and you will be good to go. But primer can have several advantages. For instance, it increases makeup durability, which is very, very nice, especially if you are counting on spending a lot of hours with your makeup on. And it can also help you along with your skincare to address any skin concerns that you might have. For instance, you can choose a mattifying primer if you have oily skin or combination skin, or if you have really dry skin and you choose something that is very hydrating, it will help you along with your skincare to keep your skin moisturized. Or maybe you have textured skin and you choose a blurring primer that will help like hide the large pores or any texture that you might have. And overall, primers are here to help smoothen everything out so that your makeup is taken to the next level and your skin just looks really flawless and even for the makeup application. For primer, I'm going in with the Angel Veil from NYX. This is a blurring primer and I feel like it works really well for combination skin. I have an oily T-zone, but I can pretty much take care of that with my skincare. But I do have very large pores, so I love using blurring primers to kind of hide that so that once I apply the foundation, you can really tell how large my pores can be. Obviously, products don't do miracles, and if you have large pores, it will be very, very hard to hide it completely, but primers do really give you some help. And one thing that you can also do is to apply several primers. Like imagine that your area in here is a little bit drier. You can go in with something more hydrating, or you just love dewy finishes but you have a very oily T-zone. You can use a mattifying primer on your T-zone and then something more moisturizing and dewy on the rest of your complexion. Before you jump into the next makeup product, let your primer set for a while because this kind of works like skincare. Your skin has to absorb a little bit. So I like to give my skin maybe 1 or 2 minutes to deal with the primer before I move on to something else. The next step that I want to talk to you guys about is color correcting. I know that not everybody needs this. This is not for every one of you, but some people might be struggling with this. Color correcting will help you cancel out any color that you have on your skin and that you shouldn't. For instance, In case of a pimple that looks very red, you can use a green color corrector to cancel out that redness, and that way it will allow you not to use as much product because you will not need to layer foundation or concealer to hide that very extreme color. For me, for instance, I have to color correct my dark circles. They are kind of green and very deep. I hate them, honestly, but no matter how much I sleep, they are always here. Maybe a little bit softer, but they are always here. So color correcting is something that is part of my daily makeup routine. The product that I would highly recommend to you guys is this one from Naked Skin. This is the color correcting fluid, and by the way, this belongs to Urban Decay. I love this product, and this one is in the shade Peach, but you have several shades of this product. You can check the brand. I love this formula. It works really well, and it kind of sits well on the skin, so once you apply things on top, it doesn't mix, it really stays in there, and it does its job like perfectly. To blend this out, you can use a brush or a beauty blender. Personally, I love to use the beauty blender for this because when it comes to color correcting, you only want to apply the product exactly where you need to cancel out any pigmentation. So if you use a brush, it's much easier to spread the product way too much, and with the beauty blender, you can blend it and keep a ton of precision on your application. I hope that from there you can see how much of a difference this makes. It pretty much cancels out any pigmentation that I have on my dark circles without even needing to apply too much product, which is what we want. The next product that I want to talk to you guys about is foundation / tinted moisturizers. What these products do is to even out your skin tone so that you build like this flawless and even complexion to apply further products. When it comes to foundations, the question that arises the most is, how do I pick the right foundation shade for myself? When it comes to foundation shades, there are several factors that you have to bear in mind. The first one being your undertone. There are 3 main undertones: warm, neutral, and cool. The warm undertone is for those who have like a more yellow toned skin. Neutral is kind of a balance in between yellow and pink, and then the cool undertone is for that kind of skin that is more on the pink side, pink and peach side. If you don't know what's your undertone, there are a couple things that you can do. You can actually look at your veins on your wrist and see their color. So in my case, I have some veins that look purple and blue and some others that look green, which tells me that I have a neutral toned skin. But if your veins are purely green, no doubt, you're probably more on the warmer side, and if your veins look very purple or blue, you are more on the cool side. You can also fall in between those categories. For instance, you can be neutral but have like more to the warm side than to the cool side. But don't worry, I got you. I'm going to give you several tips that will allow you to pick the right foundation. Even if after the vein test, let's call it that way, you still have doubts regarding your skin undertone, there is one thing that is quite simple and it works every time that you can do. You can go to a store, choose 3 shades of the same foundation, and one has to be cool, the other one neutral, and another one warm. You don't have to know which is what. You can actually ask someone that works in there to help you pick those 3 foundations and do 3 stripes on your skin, like on your cheek. This will not give you the perfect match for your skin, but once you apply those 3 stripes, you will notice which one fades the best into your skin. Just make sure that those foundations are more or less as light as you, so that you are not trying to compare things to your skin that are completely off for you. One thing that you will notice once you have those 3 foundations on your cheek is that the warmer one will make the pink one look very pink, and the pink one will make the warmer one look very orange, and that comparison, like that contrast against your skin, will definitely tell you which one is your undertone. After doing this, you have to pick the right shade for you. Now that you know your undertone, you are kind of halfway there. But now, to choose the right foundation for you, you have to test the foundation in here. You can actually draw a line in between here and here, so that you test it on your face and then on your neck, because you want to make sure that your foundation matches your neck and your chest. Otherwise, your foundation might look very off And honestly, when it comes to our face, we have redness on the cheeks. Maybe you have rosacea. Maybe your forehead is like mine. Not a huge part, but with hyperpigmentation. Like my forehead gets crazy tan. Your face has so many shades in it that it's very, very hard to pick a foundation shade through this. So you want to make sure that whatever you choose matches your neck, so that once you apply and your face is one color only, you have like a flawless application. But anyways, I hope that was clear. Once you know your undertone, it's very, very easy to choose how deep your foundation has to be. You just have to understand if you are more on the fair side, light, medium, deep, very deep, and match it on your neck, and then you will be good to go. When you are trying foundations, don't forget to let it set and dry completely though, because foundations do oxidize, and once they dry out, it might turn out to be a very different color. So once you try the foundations, don't buy them right away. Let them set and dry so that you can see how the final color is going to look like. Now that you know what kind of shade you want, you have to understand what you like about foundations. Like, what finish are you looking for? What coverage are you looking for? You might have heard about matte foundations, velvet finishes, dewy finishes, natural finishes. Let's see how many times I can say finishes in this video. This completely relies on your personal preference. I love matte finishes, but I also love more luminous finishes, so I have some foundations for each finish. When it comes to coverage, you can go very, very sheer. You can opt for tinted moisturizers, for instance. I love tinted moisturizers. They are very, very sheer. And when it comes to being sheer or not, that is the coverage, that tells you how much of your skin is going to see through. Like, how much are you going to cover from your skin? When it comes to tinted moisturizers, they are going to give you that little touch. They will definitely help even out your skin, but they are not going to give you a ton of coverage. That's not what they are built for. They are just going to give it a little touch. I love to use them. They definitely make a difference, but if I want to go full coverage, I'm definitely not going to use a tinted moisturizer. Then you have foundations with light coverages, for instance, dewy finished foundations, and then you have matte or even more luminous foundations that can be medium to full coverage. For instance, the tinted moisturizer that I really love is from NARS. This is their Pure Radiant Tinted Moisturizer, which has SPF. It's so great. I love using this, especially when I'm more on the go or I just want to look a little bit more natural and keep my makeup very simple. Then I have some other NARS foundations. I have one that is very sheer, which is the Sheer Glow Foundation. It actually has sheer on the name. And then, for instance, the Radiant Longwear Foundation, which is more on the medium coverage, but you can actually build it up. Or the MAC Studio Fix, for instance, which is very full coverage. Today I'm actually going in with the NARS Radiant Longwear Foundation, which was the one with medium coverage. I'm going to use my damp beauty blender to apply my foundation. When it comes to foundation application, you can apply with brushes, and when it comes to foundation brushes, you want to choose something that is made for creams and that is very dense. For instance, I have this one from Zoeva. As you can see, it's very dense. This is the buffer brush, which is the 104. But I personally love to apply creamy formulas with sponges, because sponges kind of give you that natural effect and they make the makeup set a lot better. I don't know, this is just my personal opinion. I love the fact that the tapping motions really press the product against your skin and into your pores. And also, one thing that I also love about sponges is that they keep you from having bristle marks like the brushes do. This just gives you like the most even and flawless application. When it comes to any makeup product, you want to keep it very light. You don't want to use too much product. When it comes to foundations and concealers, if you go very heavy with it, it will make you look cakey, trust me. You just want to choose a foundation that it's the right amount of coverage that you need. If you want a lot of coverage, just go in with a full coverage foundation. Don't go in with a sheer one and build it up. So imagine that you have a spot on your face that you want to conceal. Imagine that you have a pimple that it's pretty much drying now, but it still has a little bit of pigmentation. you should spot conceal in those cases, which means that you pick a concealer that it's the exact same shade of your complexion, and then you apply that concealer on those spots that you want to hide, because concealers are going to be a bit more pigmented and thicker, and they will hide that spot and still give you room to keep it very light with the foundation. The only thing that you have to be careful about is that when you apply the foundation, because you should spot conceal before, at least that's the way I prefer to do it, because then you go in with the foundation to even everything out, is to tap the foundation into the skin. Don't go in with a brush, because then you will move the concealer that you have applied, and then the spot conceal is just cancelled. Also, please don't forget to bring your foundation down to your neck so that you have a softer transition in between your face and the rest of your body. And for instance, if you are wearing something with a bigger cleavage, like my top for instance, you might want to actually bring down your foundation into your cleavage. But when it comes to this area right here, you should definitely keep it very, very light, because the more foundation you apply in here, the more easily it will transfer to clothes. Okay, so now pay a lot of attention, because I am about to give you a golden tip. Once you finish applying your foundation, you are not ready for concealer or whatever you want to do next. Now, take your sponge without adding any more foundation to it and go all over your face doing these tapping motions. Guys, this will make sure that you absorb any excess and that you even out your foundation, and it might even hit some spots that you kind of forgot to apply the foundation, because it happens. Now for the next golden tip. When it comes to white clothes, it is very annoying to get foundation in them. I know, I have been there. So what you want to do is to grab a very thin tissue and press it against your jawline and neck, because this will absorb any excess product that you don't want to have in there. You can see, I think you can see, like, it transferred a little bit of product. It did not take off all of my makeup in here. It just took off any excess that I don't even need. Now we are talking about concealers. We have mentioned concealers in the foundation chapter, because you can choose to spot conceal certain spots on your face that might need a little bit more coverage, but you can also use concealer to highlight your face. I personally love to use concealer to highlight and add a little bit of coverage. For instance, on my under eye area, I love to have that extra coverage in there, and I also use my concealer to brighten them up, as well as the bridge of my nose, the sides of my nose, a little bit on the chin, the bottom of my forehead. If you have seen any of my videos, you know where I love to apply my concealer. So now I am taking my new concealer, which is from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Guys, I tried this on my last video and I am absolutely obsessed with the formula. It's a little bit too dark, especially when I use full coverage and medium coverage foundations, because my skin is not as see-through, so you can see that it's a little bit too dark. So what I do is to mix a white pigment. I have white pigment because I am a makeup artist. I have this on my kit. But yeah, these shades go a little bit dark in my opinion. But the formula, you guys, is just amazing. I am really loving it, and I would 100% recommend this concealer to anyone. And one thing that I love is that this brings pretty much double the amount of an average concealer, which is a bonus because concealers are very expensive. In case I didn't say, because I think I forgot, when it comes to picking the right shade of concealer, if you want to highlight, you might want to go maybe 2 to 3 shades lighter than your complexion. You can vary how light you want to go based on what you want to achieve, what's your final result, which experience and your personal taste will tell you. But that's a pretty good guideline for you to choose a concealer. Concealers also follow the undertones as well as the foundation, so you also want to stick to your undertone when it comes to the concealer. For instance, I'm more on the neutral side, as I mentioned before, so my concealer is for neutral tone skins. When it comes to foundations, I told you that you should be very light hand, and the same thing applies to any makeup product, but concealers especially. Some people complain that their under eye area creases a ton, and that's probably because either you're not hydrating your skin properly and your under eye area needs a little bit more love, or you're just applying too much concealer or too much powder, but we will see about that later. Maybe you're just applying too much concealer and you're just accumulating too much product on such a delicate area. Concealers also have different levels of coverage, and you can also choose from a variety of finishes. If you have drier skin, I would recommend you to go for more like luminous or natural or overall radiant concealers. But if you have oily skin, maybe choose something that is a little bit more mattifying. But mind this, if your skincare is good and if your primers are helping your skincare neutralize your skin concerns, that will give you a ton of flexibility when it comes to choosing your makeup result, because your skin is already kind of neutralized, so you have more freedom to choose what kind of makeup finish you want. I love dewy finishes and I have an extremely oily T-zone, so trust me when I say this, I rely very heavily on my skincare. I am very clumsy. That's one thing that everybody who knows me knows about. But when I am talking and doing my makeup at the same time, I am extra clumsy. My brows are looking green because of the creamy formulas. Like, I've applied it on top of my brows. Because I am a woman, but I cannot multitask, you guys. I have tried it. I have been trying it for the past almost 23 years, and I just can't. As you can see, I'm using my damp beauty blender to apply my concealer, but you can also go in with a brush. Personally, I prefer the beauty blender, especially with concealer, because you have to be a little bit more precise and you want to keep the coverage. So I don't know, I just feel like the brush moves the product too much around and kind of gives you a more sheer and natural coverage, which for me, it's not my thing. I am a full coverage gal, so This is also the time to go in with your beauty blender with little to no products in this area so that you can start building the flawless base in which you are going to apply your eyeshadows. You can also use eyeshadow primers, but guys, to be honest, I'm not really a fan of those. Moving on to setting sprays, you might be wondering why the hell am I talking about setting sprays before I finish my makeup, because usually people do this at the end of the makeup. But from my personal experience and honestly my personal preference, I love to apply the setting spray 3 times throughout my makeup process. The first one being after applying all of my creamy formulas. The second one being before I apply the highlighter, because humid skin grabs a lot more product, which makes the highlighter pop out a lot more. And the third one, which I sometimes apply at the end of everything, which means after my highlighter. I like to say that it's for good luck. Now I'm going to apply before I move on to the setting powder, which is going to be the next step. The one that I'm using is the All Nighter from Urban Decay. I love this one. It's very good and it makes my makeup last so many hours. What the setting spray does, besides making your makeup stay in place all day and all night if needed, is to help the products melt together. I just feel like it makes the makeup melt together and melt into the skin. When it comes to the setting spray after applying powders, it also helps the powders melt into the creamy formulas, which gets rid of that powdery feeling and look. Setting powders will lock your makeup in place. It will definitely make sure that your makeup is not moving anywhere. My favorite setting powder is this one from Laura Mercier. This is in the translucent shade, and I love to use loose setting powders, but you can also find compact ones. This doesn't have a single difference. It basically relies on your personal preference. Me personally, I love loose powders. You can also find different shades of powders. If you buy something that is translucent, it means that it doesn't have pigment in it, which also means that it's only going to lock your makeup and it will not add any more coverage. If you want to add coverage, you can choose something that has pigment in it, and you will notice that some say light, medium, dark, it will have different shades of the same powder. To apply the powders, you want to go for powder brushes that are very large and fluffy. This one is not the largest, and I kind of like how big it is and how it is like this rounded, because this tip allows me to reach like the under eye area. And you want to apply little by little. Guys, when it comes to powder, less is way more. Powder can make you look absolutely flawless or absolutely cakey. So you want to apply very little at a time. And one thing that I kind of noticed from experience is that it is better to apply the powder in tapping motions. When you are doing this to the brush on your face, you are kind of lifting the foundation, and that might lead to your foundation application looking a little bit more cakey, which is just not flattering. And this kind of helps pressing the powder against your face without moving around the creamy formulas that you have applied. I know that you might have seen people baking, and that involves you going in with a lot of powder, and that's okay. I love baking too. But first, before going in with the baking, you have to set your foundation with a tiny bit of powder, like a very light layer. Because if you apply a ton of powder in a humid complexion from all of those creamy formulas, your complexion is going to grab a lot of the powder, and you cannot swipe it off because your foundation just really grabs it, and that makes you look very powdery. So what you want to do is to set your full face using a very light layer, let it set for a little bit, give it a few minutes for everything to set in place, and then you can go in with the baking. One extra golden tip that I also want to give you guys is that to prevent your under eye area from creasing, what you want to do is before going in with any powder on your under eye area, go in with your beauty blender to blend any creasing that might have happened in the meantime, because without setting, this will crease in no time pretty much. And then without looking down, because we don't want it to crease again, go in with a very light amount of powder and soft pressing motions. This way you have set the foundation and the concealer in the right place, and it will not crease. And guys, don't forget about the neck and the jawline, because you have applied foundation here, so you want to set this area as well. This is another step that will keep you from transferring your makeup to your clothes. I completely forgot to mention, but the powder brush that I'm using is the tapered blush brush from Primark. Now I'm going to bake. And by the way guys, you don't have to bake, and especially if you have more of a dry skin, this is probably not the best thing for you to do. But yeah guys, when it comes to the amount of powder, like the drier your skin, the less powder you want to apply. Now going in with the baking, I am just going to apply a very large amount of powder in the areas that I want to bake. I also like to bake on the bridge of my nose. This will help shaping my nose a little bit more, and also I have a very oily nose, so this helps me dealing with that issue as well. And last but not least, a little bit on the bottom part of my forehead, because I tend to get very oily after a few hours wearing my foundation, and this works just as well as it works on the nose. Now we are moving on to bronzer. Bronzer will help you get back some of the shadows that your face naturally has. So for bronzer, I know that there are two types of formulas, you guys. There are creamy ones and there are powder ones. But when it comes to beginners, and since this is a video specially tailored for beginners, I would highly recommend you guys to start by using powder bronzers. I feel like they are easier to work with because they don't require as much precision as the creamy ones, and they don't apply as much at a time as the creamy ones do. And the one that I'm using today is the Hoola from Benefit. This is an old-time favorite. And when it comes to brushes to apply your bronzer, you want to choose something that it's not too dense, something that is either rounded or a bit more angled. For instance, I have this one from Morphe. It's not that big, but it's round and it's super fluffy, but not too fluffy. This will help me apply the bronzer, keep a little bit of precision, and that's why I don't like bronzer brushes to be too big, because especially when you are a beginner, it's very easy to miss the line where you should stop applying the bronzer. And since it's not that dense, it will help you diffuse the product, but it is still going to apply a nice amount of product. The main reason why you want to stay away from very dense brushes is because once you start applying the bronzer, you will notice that it will apply way too much product at once, and that will probably create some patches on your skin and just make it harder for you to blend. To apply the bronzers, you want to kind of envision a three. You want to apply the bronzer on the sides of your forehead, and then you want to apply it on your cheeks bone, and then bring it to the jawline. When it comes to the forehead, I have a very large room to work with, as you can see. But if you have a very tiny forehead, maybe you just want to stick your bronzer more to the sides or even not even apply bronzer on your forehead, because if you bring too much shadow to it, it will make it look even smaller. When it comes to makeup, it's very much about learning about your complexion and getting to know your face. Do trial and error and see what works for you the best and what you prefer. I love doing these circular motions because it helps me lift my face and just blend the product and buff it very well. I also like to apply bronzer on the sides of my nose. I usually don't go for a very sculpted look on my nose. I like my nose shape, nothing against it, but I definitely want to bring back some shadow to the center of my face, otherwise it just looks too white and pale in here. It's kind of off balance right now. So what I do is I pick an angled brush. This is tinier than the other one that I was using, and it will help me apply the bronzer on the sides and nothing more. So what I do is I look straight in the mirror and I do these swiping motions, and then I try to connect it to my brow. You can go for a more sculpted look, but I feel like nose contour is such an advanced thing. For me, I consider myself advanced and I still struggle with nose contour because it's very easy to make it look like it's broken. It's just a very tricky thing. One last thing regarding bronzer is that I know that some people don't like to apply it. For me, it's essential. I cannot go without bronzer, but especially people that are very, very fair might just want to go in with blush. It completely relies on your personal preference, but for me, it's something that I cannot let go of. Oh, and one side note, if you want to apply creamy bronzer, if you want to take some risks, please do that before applying the powders. Whatever creamy formula it is, always apply it before the powders, because if you try to go in with creams on top of powders, trust me, it's not a good cocktail. Now for blush. Blush is going to give you a more natural, I woke up like this vibe kind of look. It will bring some color to your face. It won't be only shade and light. It's completely optional, obviously. I personally love blush, and out there you have so many types of blushes. It completely relies on your personal preference. Just make sure that you don't choose anything that is way too dark or way too light for you. And just try different shades and see what you feel the most comfortable in, or even if you like blush at all. The one that I'm going in with today is this one from NARS. I love NARS blushes. They are so pigmented, they are very long lasting, and just the shades are just so gorgeous. This one is in the shade Orgasm. It's a very vivid pink and it has a golden shimmer to it. I don't think you can see it. And when it comes to applying blush, you want to go with something kind of like the bronzer brush. You want to go with something that it's fluffy. It's not very dense because you don't want to go in with a lot of product. Otherwise, you probably look a little bit crazy. And yeah, guys, I love to use this Japanese brush, the one that I was showing you before. Or you have another option that I really love to use as well, which is kind of these angled blush brushes. This is so soft, you guys. I love Zoeva brushes. If you have seen any of my videos, you know how many Zoeva brushes I use on my eye makeup and sometimes even on my face makeup. And yeah, guys, this is a little bit more precise than this, as you can probably tell. And it's angled, which means that it will perfectly fit the shape of the face. I'm going in with my Zoeva one. When I started to talk about the Japanese one, I completely forgot that I had this, even though this is what I use like 99% of the times, I don't know. And even though this completely relies on what you want to achieve with your blush, most of the times, most of the people want to apply the blush above the bronzer for a more lifted effect if you just stick to this area right above the bronzer. Or if you want to look more youthful and, I don't know, like more on the cute side, you can also bring it to the apples of the cheeks. I love doing this personally. I feel like it looks so youthful and just so natural. It makes my skin look like skin because you tend to naturally get a little bit rosier on the apples of your cheeks. It's just how skin works. If you just want that sculpted, lifted effect, just keep your blush in here. Try not to bring it too low like in here because this will drag your face down. As well as with the bronzers, you also have creamy blushes and the same rule applies. If you want to apply creamy blush, which is pretty easy to apply, you can use your fingers or a brush for creamy formulas, but do it before the powder, please. Before going in with the highlighter, I'm going to spray my face. And I'm using the same setting spray as I did before. This is the All Nighter from Urban Decay. For highlighter, I'm going in with this one from Becca. You have seen me wearing this tons of times, and this is the Shimmering Skin Perfector in the shade Moonstone. This is what it looks like on the inside. It's a very champagne kind of color. Highlighter is very optional, you don't have to use it. What it does is to add some extra light to your face, make it more reflective to the lights. To apply the highlighter, go for very low density brushes and brushes that are very precise, like this one. This is like a bigger blending brush. This is bigger than an eyeshadow blending brush, but it's very, very tiny compared, for instance, to my powder brush, so that you can have some reference. Having a precise brush will help you apply the highlighter in all the right spots. Because if you bring your highlighter too low or too high, trust me, it will look crazy, especially if your highlighter falls on your bronzer, like I've been there. It just looks muddy and weird and green. It's very weird. So you want to choose something that is smaller so that you are able to apply your highlighter with a lot of precision. If you don't know exactly where to apply your highlighter, the key areas in which you kind of have to apply it is the highest points of your face. If you don't know what those points are, just try turning your face against the light and you can see where my face naturally has more of a reflective effect to the light. I apply it in here. I don't bring it too low, don't do that, because that will make your face look very long and weird. On the bridge of my nose, I keep it very light in here. I just want to add a touch of light. The tip, a little bit on the cupid's bow. I love doing this. The chin, only on the high point of my chin. I also like to apply it in here, but a very, very light amount. And if you want to be a little bit extra like me and apply it on the brow bone and on the inner corner, don't use this brush because this will not take you anywhere. Use something a little bit smaller. A lot smaller, I mean, like a pencil brush. I love using this Shade and Light brush from KVD. This has a pencil tip. You can use any pencil brush, honestly. I just really like this one because it's very pointy. And apply the highlighter on the arch of your brow. Not on the exact brow, but on the brow bone, you know what I'm talking about. And on the inner corner. I love to apply highlighter on my inner corner. I just love that pop of light in there. Now for brows. There are several formulas that you can work with. Again, this relies on personal preference. Me personally, I believe that pencils are a lot easier to work with when you are a beginner. So I am going to show you the one that I always use and that I absolutely love. This is the Brow Wiz from Anastasia Beverly Hills. And I know that brow products come in a lot of shades. So the shade that you want to look is one that is very close to your brow hairs but slightly lighter. For instance, I have black eyebrows, like no doubt my eyebrows are very black. But if I go in with something black, that by the way brands don't even sell, it would just look like I used a marker on my face. So the darker pencils are always like on a granite kind of shade, which is actually the name of this one, which is a very deep gray tone. So yeah guys, you want to choose something that is slightly lighter than your brow hairs, but don't go with your hair color, because if I did, I would go in with a dark brown, and once I apply it on my brow, since the rest of the hair is black, it just looks very, very off. Trust me, I made that mistake in the past. So first thing that you want to do is to brush your brows. And if you feel like you have too many creamy formulas, which I have cleaned by now, you might even want to go with a little bit of setting powder just to make sure that your brows grab the product instead of just trying to apply the product and the brows just not picking it up. I like to start by building the lower part of my brow, and by the way, you can see that I have plenty of hair, so I don't go in too heavy with the brows. If you have to build a brow from scratch pretty much, you might have to use a little bit more product. And I have seen many tricks on doing brows, and trust me, I have tried way too many, but one trick that you can use is to put the pencil like this right on the side of your nose and mark it, and this is where your brow is supposed to start. Then you might want to cross your pencil like this, look straight in the mirror. It's kind of hard to show this on camera, but go right in the middle of your eye, and then this is where the curve should be, and then follow this line until the outer part of your eye, and that is where it should finish. But the thing for me guys is that my whole face is very uneven. So it's very hard for me to use these tricks because my eyes are very asymmetrical. Overall, my face is very asymmetrical. So I just basically do the best that I can, and sometimes I fail. Big time. As I was saying, I like to start by the bottom part of my brow, so I brush the hairs upwards and I start building sort of a line. Then you want to brush your hairs downwards so that you have room for the pencil to work. And finish that line of the brow. Don't make such a sharp line because that will end up looking very fake and heavy. Just keep it very light. Just fill in any gaps that you might want, and the more hair you have on your brows, the lighter you want to keep the products. If you're like me and your brows are completely wild and they tend to get very messy throughout the day, you can also apply a clear brow gel or a brow gel with some pigment in it. Personally, I love the clear ones because they guarantee that the brows don't look too heavy. And the one that I'm going to be using and that I'm about to show you guys is this one from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is their clear brow gel. And what I do is I make sure that I am grabbing not too much product, and then I brush my hairs in the direction that I want them to go. Now moving on to eyeshadows, you guys. I am going to do a look that I find pretty standard. It's not hard to do. I don't even think that I'm going to do a wing liner because that is not very beginner friendly, and if you see me wearing a wing liner on my thumbnail, it might be a little bit intimidating because I know that it's a struggle for many beginners. I'm just going to talk to you guys about a couple things that are very beginner when it comes to eyeshadows, and maybe I'll film a video in the future if you guys want on makeup for beginners but eyeshadows edition. The first thing that you want to bear in mind is that you should buy a palette that it's very neutral, very universal, has like those brown shades, maybe a black eyeshadow, some shimmers, something that is very versatile, that you can go for lighter looks, or if you want to go a little bit heavy, if you're feeling like going a little bit extra today, you can go for deeper eyeshadows. And I have been using one on my channel that I've recommended to you guys so many times. You are probably tired of hearing me talking about it, and that is the Soft Glam palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is what it looks like on the inside. As you can see, it has so many brown eyeshadows. It's so versatile and it's so good for beginners. You have a black eyeshadow, you have a very light one that you can use on the lid or to highlight certain parts of your eyes like the brow bone. You have so many shades in here and it's so like neutral. It's so good for beginners, honestly. And the formula of Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadows is one of my favorites. It's so good to work with. They are very pigmented, very blendable, which is something really nice, especially for beginners, because you are already trying to learn how to blend eyeshadows. So you want to work with formulas that kind of give you a hand with that. The first eyeshadow that you want to go in with is your transition shade. The transition shade is a shade that is a little bit darker than your complexion, and that will help you create the perfect transition, the perfect gradient in between your skin and the darker eyeshadows. It will help give you some depth to your eye by giving depth to the crease and stuff. You can actually use your bronzer to do this. I use this so many times. This is a trick that makes your whole look very cohesive and stuff, but since today I am trying to show you an eyeshadow palette and how you can work with an eyeshadow palette, I am going to use solely eyeshadows from here. So the first eyeshadow that you want to pick from the palette is one of kind of the lightest ones, but deeper than your skin tone. As you can see, this is pretty close to my bronzer. You are going to apply your transition shade above your crease and on your crease as well if you want. So you want to find a brush that is very large and fluffy, which is basically just a large blending brush. I am going to show you my absolutely favorite blending brush since I've ever started doing makeup. I am sorry, this is stained because pink eyeshadows tend to stain brushes and it's very hard to remove. But this is the 228 from Zoeva. This is hands down the best blending brush that I've ever tried. And I have worked with a few blending brushes by now, but this is hands down the absolute best blending brush. And it's not even that expensive. I think it costs around 11 or 12 euros. I will leave the link to it down below. And I have a coupon at Look Fantastic, and I'm pretty sure that the coupon, which by the way can give you up to 25% off on your purchases, works on Zoeva brushes. I don't know how much is the discount, but it's definitely worth it. I'm going to pick this lighter brown eyeshadow. This is called Burnt Orange, and I am going to apply this eyeshadow above my crease. I do not want to apply it on my crease because personally I don't have much lid space, but I have a large space in here, as you can see, so I want to kind of fake a bigger lid. And if you don't know where your crease is, don't worry, I got you. Just don't think that this is the only lid that I have. If you want to see where your crease is, you can use like this side of the brush and press it and see where the brush kind of goes a little bit deeper, like where your eye socket ends. Lean your head like this, look straight in the mirror and see exactly where the angle of your skin kind of shifts, where your skin stops going inwards and going outwards. But poking the brush like this and see where kind of the bone just starts will help you realize where your actual crease is and actually follow the right lines. Otherwise you will end up with a very tiny lid space to work with. Especially if you have hooded eyes like me. You can do like this sort of motion, and you can also do circular motions. Both motions are perfect to help blend eyeshadows. Personally, I love doing these while the brush still has pigment on, so that I make sure that I'm applying the product exactly where I want it to be. And then I go in with circular motions to buff it out, and I also like to do large circular motions on the outer corner to bring the eyeshadows closer to the end of my brow, which helps me elongate my eyes a little bit. Don't bring the eyeshadows too close to your nose, otherwise you will have too much depth in this inner part. So just keep it very light, work little by little, and keep most of the depth in the outer 2/3. The closer you get to the outer part of your eye, the more depth you have, which means that the more intense your eyeshadows are. Obviously, this depends on what kind of makeup look you are trying to go for, but this is a very basic eye makeup look which is flattering on pretty much every single eye shape, so this is the rule for this kind of look. Now we are going to build an outer V, which will help like bringing some extra depth to the outer part of your eyes and even elongate them a little bit more. This is something that will make you look like a pro did your makeup. This is something that I love doing. I do not like to go with one eyeshadow and the shimmer on my lid or anything like that. I want to have some extra depth on that outer part. So now we are picking a darker eyeshadow, still a brown eyeshadow, but something darker. And I'm going to use something a little bit tinier than the other blending brush because now we want to have a lot more precision. We want to stick this color only to our crease area and outer part area. I actually grabbed the wrong brush. This is the 231, which is the Luxe Petite Crease. It's a blending brush, but it's a lot more dense and a lot more precise. So I am picking Rustic, which is this darker brown. I want to go darker, but not this darker, or the black eyeshadow darker. And you are going to start by packing a little bit on the outer third of your lid. Go very light hand with it, just build little by little. You don't want to go in with a lot of eyeshadow because that's very hard to blend afterwards and it can make you look crazy. And then when the brush has pretty much nothing in it, bring it to the crease only until like half of it, or you can actually just keep it on the outer third. And just do some sort of circular motions to buff it out and just blend it with the other one that you have applied. And just to make sure that everything is very, very blended. Then you can go again with your blending brush, the larger one that you use, and run it along your crease just to make sure that those eyeshadows blend very well together. Just keep on these motions so that you blend them together without misplacing the darker eyeshadow. In this look, we are going to try to bring some light to our lids. So I'm going in with a light shimmer. And the one that I'm using today is Fairy, which is this very golden color of this palette. And to pack eyeshadows, you want to go in with a flat, dense brush. These kind of brushes are just perfect to pack eyeshadow, not to blend, because right now you don't want to blend the shimmer, you want to pack it on your lid. And the one that I'm going to show you today is this one from Zoeva as well. I told you guys I love their brushes and they are very affordable, which is like, what's not to love? This is the 238, which is the Luxe Precise Shader. As you can see, it's very tiny and flat. It's very dense. And I'm just going to pick the eyeshadow. Don't pick too much because now that we have our complexion done, we don't want any fallout. And just start packing. Like, can you see how pigmented this shimmer is? If you don't have long nails like I do, you can actually go in with your finger. Just try to keep a little bit of precision. Don't bring the shimmer to your crease, because applying shimmers with the fingers really increase the payoff of the eyeshadows. Like, it's the best way of applying any shimmer. If you want to buff out the shimmer edges, you can just clean that tinier crease brush that you use and just do like this motion. Not too much because you don't want to buff out the shimmer completely, but this will definitely help you get rid of that harsh line so that everything looks very blurred and melted together. Now for lashes, you have two options. Either you go in only with mascara or you apply false lashes. I feel like false lashes are not the most beginner friendly kind of thing. I personally cannot go without false lashes because they make my lashes come back to life. So I am going to quickly show you how I apply my lashes, but you can just apply the mascara and you are good to go. And by the way, if you are a beginner, don't go in with very heavy lashes because that will not make the job easier. If you do want to start applying false lashes, look for lashes that have like this very thin strip, because this is the easiest to apply because they are very flexible, very, easy to work with overall. When it comes to lash glue, always go for dual lash glue. It's the best glue that you have in the market, honestly. And you want to apply a very little amount of glue to your lashes. You don't want to apply your lashes as soon as you finish applying the glue in it. You want to let it dry a little bit just to make sure that the glue is very tacky. Not completely dry, obviously, but tacky, so that once you apply the lashes, they do not move around. When it comes to actually applying the lashes, I prefer to grab them in the outer part, as you can see. And you don't want to start applying right in this corner, otherwise your lashes will be like this. So you want to start applying a little bit before that. And also a trick that you can use, instead of following these parts, you can actually apply them straight. Apply kind of a little bit on your skin in this outer part, not on your lash line, just to make sure that your lashes lift your eyes. The inner part is the last one that I stick in place, and it's honestly the toughest part. Guys, now it doesn't really matter if you have false lashes or just your natural lashes, you always have to apply mascara. If you have false lashes, you want to make sure that the lashes are very well blended together. The only difference, in my opinion, is that when you have false lashes, you don't apply as much mascara because the lashes are already like giving you all the volume and length that you want. And by the way, whenever you are using new false lashes, you always have to trim them because they come in a very long size. You want them to reach this part of your eye, and you always trim them in the outer part, never the inner part. You can always place them on top of your lashes and see how big they are and how much you need to trim. And you can also trim little by little while you are getting used to it. Now moving on to lipstick. Lipstick heavily relies on what you prefer to use. Obviously, you know that there are plenty of options out there. I'm just going to show you like some steps that I like to do to apply my lipstick. So as soon as I start doing my makeup, I always apply some lip balm so that once I reach the part in which I'm about to do my lips are perfectly moisturized. And the first thing that I always do is to line my lips. No, I am not looking for building a gradient on my lips. I'm just trying to define them because the lipstick applicator usually doesn't give you a ton of precision. So I like to line my lips with a color that is pretty much my lip color just to define the edges. Or if I'm wearing a red lipstick, I like to use a red lip pencil just to build that outer part of the lip without the risk of smudging it out with the lipstick applicator. I'm going to line my lips using this MAC pencil. This is the shade. I love this formula, but if you want something a little bit more on the affordable side, you also have NYX pencils, which are just amazing. I'm just going to line my lips. Don't worry about overlining them to make them look bigger. And by the way, it's easier to look straight in the mirror and keep your pencil kind of like in this position, in this angle. Now for lipstick, I'm going in with a very neutral shade, and honestly, if you are a beginner, I would highly recommend you to work your way into lipsticks by using nude shades, because if you are not that precise, you can't really tell But if you are going in with a red lipstick, you want to be as precise and as careful as you can, because it's such a strong color that you will be able to see if you miss that line. So I'm going in with the NYX Soft Matte Lip Cream, and this one is in the shade Abu Dhabi. As you can see, like, the applicator is not as sharp as a pencil, so this doesn't give you a lot of control on the edges. That was the final step for today's makeup tutorial. I hope that you found this video very useful and that you could take something out of it. And as you can see, makeup heavily relies on our personal preferences, like what we like to use, how we like to do things, and that just comes from experience. So just try new techniques, try new ways of doing things, and just try it on yourself and see what works best for you and what you like the most. And also get to know your face, get to know where you want to add shade and light, get to know your face shape and what suits you the best. And now that you know what you're doing, if you want another option of an absolutely flawless makeup look for day use, don't forget to check this video right here to make sure that you look your best every single day. So yeah guys, that is it for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also to leave this video a like, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!